Hey, Henry, you there?
Yes, I am. How are you?
Oh, great. And again, I do that. I don't know why I do that. Like we're on video
Yeah,
and I see you there and I still ask you. I don't know. It's just like a habit from when I was just doing the audio ones.
no worries.
But thanks for joining us today on the podcast. And I've already read in the intro the email that you sent to me, and I think it's an incredible story. Especially 30 deals and 20 rental doors right within that first year. It's not even a full year, probably, right?
Pretty
August
cool.
of
Yeah.
2017. Congratulations, man. That's not a lot of people accomplish that. There's probably very few people that have gone the first year.
Yeah. Thank you
And
very much. It's been a ton of fun. It's been a whirlwind, and it, the intent definitely wasn't to go that fast, but once we got started, we just really enjoyed what we were doing, and you know, as you know, marketing kind of takes a mind of its own, and as the leads come in, you figure out something to do with them. So we just kept rolling with what was coming in.
that's awesome. So I want to find out how all that happened, right? Like how that worked. And we can start with what got you into real estate investing, and then just share your story. And then I'll ask some questions along the way. And I just want to hear. I'm sure everybody out there listening just wants to hear, what was that like? What got you that fired up? And then how did you proceed to have so much success with it?
Sure, sure. So uh, to start all the way back at the beginning, uh, my wife and I got married literally one day or 1 year to the day we met. So we went on a first date, and then that day next year we got married.
Oh,
And
cool.
uh, and so
Yeah, it's like you make up your mind to do something. You do
yeah,
it.
just jump off the cliff, bud.
That's
So
awesome.
so I went from being a single guy to a year and a half later being 6 months into being married and talking about a family. And I just knew that I hadn't made the right decisions financially to be prepared to take care of a family through retirement. And so literally had a panic attack in the middle of the night one night,
Oh man,
just wondering how I'm gonna take care of this family. And
what were you doing at the time?
I still work. So I work for a large retailer in the area, and so I had a great day job, love my job, really enjoy what I do. But
So you tell
wasn't
me you did all this part time.
Yeah, I'm still fully employed right now.
Man,
Yeah. So yeah, so I just knew I hadn't saved for retirement like I should, and started panicking and started Googling ways to generate income, and passive income came up. And so I started diving into what does passive income mean, and just found lots of articles and just TED Talks about uh, real estate. And it really piqued my interest because my wife and I have both always enjoyed real estate and housing. And, we're that couple who sees an open house and would just stop and go, whether we were
oh
in the
yeah,
market or not yet. So it just really piqued my interest. And I didn't know much about real estate, but I knew people that worked in real estate. So I talked to a good friend of mine about it because I knew that she was heavily involved in real estate on the commercial side. And she gave me a box of books, and in that box of books was Rich Dad Poor Dad, and you know how that goes.
yeah, yeah.
For sure, right? And so, um,
He's got to be responsible for probably at least 50% of the current
it
house flippers and investors out there.
yeah, it might be a low number, man. It's
Yeah,
it's it's. I mean, it definitely it piqued my interest, but more so, it really got me focused on the mindset. And I think, we wouldn't have had as much success as we had if my mindset wasn't in the right place. And so, like, the first thing we did was just changed how we saved money and started setting aside a good chunk of our income each week. And because that way I knew if in a year or 2 years I do no real estate deals, I will at least save a good amount of my income, and that's not a terrible place to be. So yeah, the mindset really helped. But I'd say from there, from when I read that book to when I did my first deal was probably 3 or 4 months.
no,
Uh,
wow, that's quick.
yeah. Um,
So where did that one come from?
so it came from it was the house of a good friend of mine. He they say you should tell everybody what you're doing. And I found that to be absolutely true. So even though I hadn't done a deal, I just talked to him. We worked in the same building, and I told him just, hey, I'm looking at doing some real estate investing and buying some rental properties. Don't really know what that looks like yet, but that's kind of the plan, to start building up for retirement. And he said, well, what kind of houses are you looking for? And I'm like, man, anything that's a good deal. He was like, well, what kind of a good deal? I have a house. And I was like, okay. So he had a house that he was renting out to a friend of his, who he was literally just renting it out for enough to cover the mortgage. He wasn't trying to make any money on it. He was really doing the guy and his family a favor. But he had gotten to the point now where he needed to buy another property as primary residence.
It was just a burden. He wasn't making money from it. He didn't see it as a good investment.
Exactly. He just wanted to get rid of it so that he could buy the land and house that he has now, and he needed to do that for loan.
Did you get nervous?
I got super nervous because I didn't have any money saved. I didn't know how I would come up with the down payment. I really hadn't figured out what the plan was going to be then, and so once I started evaluating the deal, it turned out to be a really good deal, and I needed to come up with the down payment. I had $1,000 in my savings account. That was it. That was my step 2 from Dave Ramsey, I think. Get $1,000 in your savings.
Yeah,
that's all I had. So, I just started trying to figure out ways to come up with down payment money, and I couldn't think of anything. And so I ended up calling a buddy of mine who I know was looking to buy deals, and I told him about the deal and said, hey, I can't come up with a way for that down payment, but this is a good deal. Somebody should buy it. And he evaluated the deal, and he called me back and he said, hey, this is a good deal. I could buy it, but you need to figure out a way to purchase it. Rack your brain, figure it out. And he started bouncing ideas off me. And one of the things he bounced off me was a 401k loan. And my wife and I, she had a 401k that she was actually putting money into, unlike me. So, so we looked into that, and it turned out to be a really good plan for us. So she borrowed the down payment out of her 401k. She's making the payments back to herself through her check. So they just automatically deducted from her check, and she's paying interest in on it. But since it's her money, she's getting the interest.
Yeah.
Right. We bought the house at such a great deal that the rent covers the mortgage, the expenses, and covers us paying back her loan. And so she's paying herself back with interest. The house is generating income, and it just turned out to be just the best decision we made. And so,
did you guys change over tenants, or did you keep that tenant in there? What did you do?
So the intent was to give him the option to stay, but we obviously had to raise the rent. We had to pay more than just covering the mortgage. And so I just sat down with him and explained to him the situation, and kind of explained to him, here's what rents are in the area. I think I had a real estate agent friend of mine kind of pull what rents were going for around him, so he could see like what the comparable numbers were. And he took 30 days. Well, I gave him 30 days to kind of look around and see what he wanted to do. He called me back in 2 weeks and said he would stay.
Cool.
Didn't really have to do anything there. Just raised the rent, signed a new lease, and it's been pretty good so far.
Wow. So the place is in good shape?
Yeah, it's in good shape. It wasn't the cleanest, but it's in good shape, and it's a solid 3-2, 1,400 square foot house. Concrete foundation.
Awesome. Sounds pretty good. So when you started, so you said like 3 or 4 months to get that first one from your buddy, what were you doing before that came along to try to find deals? Were you still studying, or were you actually like looking for stuff?
So at that time I was kicking around starting a direct mail marketing campaign, and I hadn't started it yet, and I really hadn't had a reason to not start it yet, other than I was terrified, right? And it was kind of like, I laugh at your story because you said the first time your phone rang, you threw it at your wife. It was I was feeling that same kind of pressure.
So that was was the concern like I'm going to get a flood of calls and I'm not going to know how to talk to people, or what was the concern?
My biggest concern was just, if I spend the money, is the phone going to ring? I had no idea. I mean, people said it is, but until your phone actually starts ringing, the biggest concern was, I'm going to spend this money and it's going to be for nothing.
Right.
And then once I spent the money, then the biggest concern was, what do I do when this phone rings?
Hmm.
But to kind of combat the fear of spending the money, kind of the way I worked through it was I try to write my fears down on paper, and so that way I can look at them and see them and rationalize them a little differently. And sometimes it turns out they're absolutely fears, and then I should totally not go down that path. And sometimes I read them and I look at them and I think through them and I go, that's not something to be scared of, right? It just kind of helps me visualize the fear. And so,
No, that's cool. I really like that. And I haven't heard anybody really say that they do that. And it really puts it in front of you and outside of your head, right? And then it's an objective thing you can see from a different perspective, right?
absolutely.
No,
It's
that's a really good idea.
just a different mental take on it.
Mm-hmm.
And once I did that, I wrote down the fear was, you're scared of losing money. And so my next thought was, well, how much money is it? And I had done the research to know that it was going to cost me 300 or something, $300 ish to pull a 1,000 name list from the list provider we used. And so $300, I wrote that down, and I knew it was going to cost me, $600 or $700 to send the postcards that I wanted to send. I had done the research to figure out what that was going to cost, right? And so I wrote it down and I said, my fear is losing $1,000. And so I said, is that really a fear? $1,000 when all you've got is $1,000 in a savings account is a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
But what I did was I just researched the no interest credit cards for, 15 months or 24 months or something like that, and found a bunch that would accumulate points. And I said, okay, if I get this credit card and I put $1,000 in this credit card, $1,000, divided by 24 months, whatever that payment is, that's my risk, right? And I knew I'm gainfully employed. I have a good job. I could afford to make that payment. If I fall on my face, at least I know I can make the payment and sustain myself and won't have to change my lifestyle any. So, but when I looked at it like that, I really had no reason to be afraid because the risk wasn't a big deal then.
Wow, I love that. Like you figured out, what the fear was. What is it actually like? In my head, it's going to cost a lot, but what does that mean? What is a lot of money? You broke it down to the actual numbers.
Right.
And then you found a way that was scary as hell. So you said, well, is there a way I can finance this or do something to where it's not that big number?
Yep.
Wow, I love it. No, it's awesome.
Yep.
I can't wait to hear the rest of the story too on the rest, like getting the rest of these deals, because you're pretty creative and I like it.
Absolutely. So yeah, so once I did that, like the fear was gone. We immediately, started the campaign, and I quickly learned my very first lesson with marketing campaigns. So I sent 1,000 pieces of mail in my very first marketing campaign, and expecting, they say 1% is good. So I expected a few phone calls. Obviously, I hope something would turn into a deal, but man, my phone went off. I got at least 50 phone calls, and
wait, how many?
50.
Wow.
And I have a day job, so that was difficult, and I didn't expect that kind of return. And so
what were the phone calls spread out? Like how did that, like the first day that they dropped, what were the numbers per day kind of?
The first day that they dropped, I got the most phone calls, and man, my phone must have rang 15 or so times, and most of them were right when the mail was hit. People were getting the mail out of the mailbox, looking at it, and then calling me. So I was really surprised. My very first phone call, I got yelled at. So that was, I got that out of the way right away.
Did it make you wonder if all the rest of them would be that too?
It honestly wasn't the best feeling for your first phone call. It just made me bummed out for the rest of them. But the second phone call was super nice. And it was also a don't call me anymore, but she was way more polite about it.
Oh, good.
Yeah. But it was, the response was good, and I really had no clue what I was going to say. And so to combat that, I'm fairly certain I got my list of questions to ask sellers from FlippingJunkie's website, and I just would follow that script. Even if I didn't even know why I was asking that question, at least it gave me the script to keep the conversation going.
No, that's good. So what was the list and what was the mail piece that you sent? Do you remember?
Yep, absolutely. So we sent. I wish I'd grabbed the postcard. So we sent. It's a basic postcard. It was just a all white background and in red font. On the very front of it, it says "regarding your property." So it kind of has this official look. And on the
Mm-hmm.
when you flip it over, it says, "Hi, my name's Henry. I'd like to buy your house at 123 Main Street." And then in the bottom corner of it, it's just got like a checklist. No realtor fees, no closing costs. Close when you want to. We buy for cash, and it got a really good response. I was
Super
surprised.
simple then. It wasn't like wasn't a giant wall of text or anything, just straight to the point.
Yeah, I didn't want to overthink it. Just I figured doing anything was better than doing nothing, and
Yeah.
I tweak as I go along. But I got to start somewhere, so I just started basic. Yeah.
Right. So what was the list?
We did. We mailed for equity and age. So I think it was equity, age, and price. So we were looking for at least 75% equity. So meaning that they paid off at least 75% of their house. And then I think we went over 50 on age. And then we didn't want houses that were worth over 200,000. We wanted to keep it smaller because we hadn't done it before.
That's what I prefer too. I don't like having a lot in one property. What, yeah. So, I mean, what size of market are you in? Wouldn't that return a pretty big list?
Yeah, it did. So it returned a huge list, but we would just buy sections of it. So I only bought like the first 1,000 names off of it. And we're still minding that same list.
What was the strategy on how you determined which 1,000 to buy? Was it just give me the first 1,000? I mean, how do you do
Yeah,
that?
it literally was. So we had picked the cities that we want, right? And so that we knew that the names we picked were going to be in the areas we wanted to mail. Just took the first 1,000 off the list. And
Cool.
we still pull from that list.
Right. So are you doing multiple mailings for each one?
Yeah. We've so I did 1,000 names that first time, and I ended up getting 2 deals from it, if I can remember.
Really?
Yeah. I got 2 deals off that first campaign, and then we pulled another 1,000 names, and I think we ended up getting another deal off that one. And then we ended up getting some other deals through word of mouth. So it's just, the more you talk to people or the more you kind of scour the different sources. My wife found one of our deals on Facebook.
Really?
Yeah. It was literally a lady who posted a status on Facebook that said, "Hey, I really need to get rid of this house. I'm willing to sell it for what I owe if anybody wants to buy it."
Really?
No one responded. We showed up and put it under contract that day.
Can you search Facebook for that stuff?
The way my wife tells it, she was just down some Facebook rabbit hole. She wasn't even looking for any real estate related anything. She just stumbled across it and sent
Well,
it.
you guys were putting that want out though. You must have, and it came to you guys. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
Man, so that first deal was from the mailing or from the friend, and then you had done some mailings, right? And got some.
We started the mailings right after we got that first deal. Yeah.
Right. And so what was the progression from there? And what were those first deals? Were those all rental properties, or what were you guys doing for those?
Sure. The first deals were assignments off the mailer. They were assignments. I didn't get my next rental for. It was actually my personal a house hack, my personal residence, and so that was kind of my second rental. And then the next 2 that I have, one was off rental, one was off direct mail, and one was off of my website.
Nice.
Yeah. So most of the deals we were getting from mail at first were assignments, just because we hadn't built up the capital to be at a place to buy all those outright at that point. But
right. So what was doing the first ones as assignments? And I'm asking you these questions because you did all this stuff within a year, so it's probably still pretty fresh for you. But like when you decided to put something under contract, knowing that you were going to assign it,
yep.
Any struggles with doing that you had a hard time doing?
No. So the first one I put under contract that I was going to assign, it was I didn't have to do. The guy who bought it is the same gentleman who had talked me into finding a way to close on that first deal. He's actually my business partner now, so we do a lot of this together in a 50-50 business. So,
Cool.
uh, so I got the lead on the house. I went to look at the house, and I asked him to go with me to look at it. A, because I knew he'd be a potential buyer, and B, because he's got more of a construction eye than I
Hmm.
do. I've developed one now over the course of the months, but when I first got started, I didn't quite know what I was looking for, and so he kind of helped me with that. And when we got there, we walked it, and I knew the price, what the price was going to be, because they already said what they owed on it and what they needed to get out of it. And so after we walked it, I turned to him and said, "What do you think?" And he was like, "I'll take it." So
Nice.
it was, that one was, pretty easy when your buyer walked it with you, and was there when you put it under contract. So
Yeah, it takes out any of the fear of making a mistake, right? And gives you the confidence that, okay, I know this number now is good for a property like this, right?
absolutely.
Um, and I just got an email from somebody, I think it was yesterday or the day before, about um, trying to find a mentor. And I was going to do a separate episode, but I figured it'd be really short. But I could just throw it in here because it's the same thing. It sounds like what happened with you is if you're actually doing the work to find these potential deals, the guys that you end up getting mentored from or partnering with, like you did, the guys that are doing stuff, and you're showing that you're capable of bringing stuff to that relationship, they're going to want to talk with you and work with you. And it's not a matter of finding the mentor first and then going out and trying to find deals, right? That's the backwards way, because they wonder, like, this guy want me to hold his hand and show him everything and show him, you know what I mean? Or is he going to bring something?
Absolutely,
And you
and
brought something.
that's 100% how it worked. It's funny. You'll have to talk to my partner sometime. His name is Dustin, but it's it's funny. The reason we became partners is because, I mean, frankly, he got tired of paying for my deals, right? And so he ended up, he bought, I think, 3 or 4 of them from me before we partnered up. Um, and so it was great all the way around, because I was at a point where I knew I wanted to scale, but I have a day job, right? And there's not much more scaling I could have done without help, and still have the day job. And um, I knew I had built trust with him, not only because he bought my deals, but that very first deal I brought to him, he could have taken, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I was thinking that.
he didn't take it. Yeah. He
Yeah.
wanted me to get it, and he
Right.
helped me brainstorm ways to try to get it. And so we had a foundation of trust built from the beginning, and I mean, that's really what's helped us along the way.
Yeah. That's incredible. That's awesome. So, uh, what is it structured like then? Because if you're still wanting to pick up rentals and stuff like that, how are you guys doing this?
Yeah. So the way we worked it out was, we split marketing costs 50-50. So direct mail marketing is split 50-50. And so when a lead comes in, once we put it under contract, we kind of do a round robin style. So if whoever's turn it is, they can decide if they want to take that one down themselves as a rental. And if that person doesn't, then the other person can. If neither one of us decide we want it individually as a rental, then however we decide to monetize that lead, it's 50-50. So if we
Oh,
flip it
cool.
or assign it or anything else we do with it, it's split.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. So, what if you're gonna fix and flip the property? Is that on him, and you're kind of doing acquisitions and putting them under contract?
Yep. So um, the way we've been working it is, so leads in the more northern side of where we live, I take, just logistically. It makes more sense for me to work those. He works the more southern leads, and then once we uh, close on one, and let's say we're going to flip it, then it's just kind of yeah, we both will manage it. It's the ones that are closer to where he lives, he kind of takes the lead on. The ones that are closer to where I live, I take the lead on. But we're both pretty involved, and we communicate well. I talk to him every day, so we both will manage a rehab and until it gets done.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to hear that you guys working together like that. So, so how did things progress from getting those deals into what does it look like now? What are you guys kind of doing monthly, and what are your plans for going beyond where you're at?
Sure. So we've gone from so when I started, I said I was sending 1,000 mailers. I think we send somewhere between 6,000 and 8,000 a month now.
Wow.
And it, we're kind of at that point that you asked what our plans for the future are. We literally were just talking about having kind of a sit down annual meeting and talking about where do we take it from here. You kind of reach this awkward phase of either you need to build it up or take it down, right? Because of the time it starts to take. But we definitely both want to ramp up. We'd like to continue to acquire more rental doors, and then start our own property management company to manage those doors. There's just that I just don't find a ton of them in this area, and no one's going to manage your properties like you are, like you will. So
Right.
That's the direction we'd like to take it is acquire enough to where we're justified hiring our own property manager.
No, that's smart. And I like how you're thinking long term, and that's, it might take a little bit longer, but it's not going to all be gone when you stop.
Absolutely.
Or slow down or do something different.
We I got into this to the real estate obviously for the passive income, but the leads, I mean, if you're marketing, the leads really will kind of tell you what you should do with them, based on the location and the price the seller's willing to sell for. And so we have several rental doors, but I think we've got 3 flips happening right now, and then we're closing on another one that we'll end up flipping here in the next week. So most of what we have going on right now is flips, and that's just the nature of the leads that are coming in.
Wow. So how are you guys determining what you want to do with those properties when they come in?
Yep. So it's really, a lot of it is location. Location and how good of a deal it is. The ones that we're flipping right now, one of them is a little further south than where I live and isn't in a prime location as far as me wanting to have to drive there all the time to check up on it, and it's on a busier road, and the houses under 150,000 are hard to come by, especially if they're new or remodeled. So I know that there's a good market of people out there who will buy it if we flip it, and maybe not as much if we rent it. And because we're marketing, and I don't think there's a ton of people out here that are marketing, we can really pick and choose where we want rentals, based on where they come in. So I just kind of like to save that capital that you're going to have to leave in a property for a rental that I know is in a great area.
Yeah, nice.
So yeah, mostly location, and then what the deal, what we're buying the deal for. We try to present a couple different options when we offer. We have a number if it's going to be a rental, and that number may be a little different if it's going to be a flip, and it may be a little different if we're going to, wholesale it. We don't really do assignments anymore. Arkansas has the laws have changed with wholesaling, so we just close on them now. We'll close on them and just put them back on the MLS, clean them up a little bit.
Yeah. So yeah, doing that, are you guys finding you're getting a lot better prices on the MLS ones, and does that come with extra headaches from realtors getting involved?
It hasn't really been a headache. We've only, I think it was only one. No, we might not have even put that one back on the MLS. We've built relationships with enough investors that once we close on one and we own it, I can make a couple of phone calls, or my partner can make a couple of phone calls, and somebody will usually come buy it. Um, and it's just, there's less headache that way because we own it. So there's no, it's not illegal.
Right. So do y'all make the calls first, and then if it doesn't sell, then you list it on the MLS?
Yeah, then we would list it. So I think the last two that we did, they sold before we had to list it.
Do you do that with the owners still in it, or just the vacant ones?
No, those were.
Well, I guess you bought it, so you own it now. Yeah.
Yeah, those were both vacant.
Yeah, it'd be kind of weird if the previous owner was still living there, right?
We've had to buy a couple where the owner stayed a little past closing, but we usually do a delayed occupancy addendum when we do those.
Yeah, you withhold any money or something like that, proceeds until they're out.
Yeah, we make sure that that we have a solid date on when they plan to be out, and we make sure it's just a document that clearly states that we closed on it and we own it, and you are now paying us rent until you're out by XYZ date.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And then what is some of you guys' process? So who's taking? You're splitting the cost and the marketing and stuff like that, but who's taking the calls? And then do you have any special tips for taking calls and setting appointments and building that rapport and
Sure.
talking with sellers? Because I think you're doing all you're all direct from sellers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we both take calls, and we'll, like I said, my phone number's on all of the properties, on the north side of where we live. His phone number's on all the properties on the south side where we live. So we're both taking calls. And yeah, I would say what's been super beneficial to us is that we answer the phone. I think a lot of people, use virtual assistants or some other way to take the calls. And I've really found that first contact is really your first opportunity to build rapport. And a lot of people around here, their guard is up, but the minute you tell them where you live or where you're from, like the guard just seems to come down, and they realize you're not some big, company out of California buying up property in Arkansas.
Isn't that weird how people think that's the case, right? Cause I guess because we advertise we pay cash or something, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the phone calls start with, "Hey, I got your deal in the mail. Who are you and where do you live?" And I'll say, "Well, I'm Henry. I live in Springdale." And they go, "Oh, Springdale? Yeah, probably, local guy." And they go,
like Springdale,
okay.
California, or Springdale?
Yeah. Okay. Well, tell me about this postcard. And then it really, once their guard comes down and they realize I'm just a guy who lives in Arkansas like you, right? Then it really helps open the door to build that rapport. And so definitely answering the phone has been huge for us. And just
and that sounds like a basic thing, right? But how many times have you called other investors and you can't get a hold of people, like from their marketing, and they're not picking up their phones?
It's several. Whenever I see a bandit sign, I'll call it because I just figure that's somebody I should network with. And I don't think I've called a bandit sign yet where I felt like somebody answered the phone and I felt like they were professional. They either don't answer the phone, or the last bandit sign I called, the guy answered the phone. He said, "Yeah," and I said, "Yeah, I saw your number on this sign. It says you buy houses." And he was like, "Yeah."
Wow.
So I mean, if you think if I'm a guy that has a house, right, and I'm been selling and I'm calling a random phone number, you'd want some comfort in knowing who you're calling is going to be professional. And so those are the things we try to do. We try to be professional, and we answer the phone, and we immediately try to start building that rapport and just letting people know that we're just a couple of guys here who are looking to build a rental portfolio and find a way we can help you out of a tough situation.
Awesome. Do you set the appointment on that first call?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try to set it for as soon as possible. I'll go see it the same day if I can. So I usually just set all my appointments for, after work, sometimes on a lunch break. But I can usually if they're motivated, you can sometimes get them and go see it that same day.
Yeah, and that's key if they're motivated. I know whenever I was getting to the point where it's getting, so many appointments and we're doing all this other stuff, the temptation is always to be like, okay, well, I'll come by and see it tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's just like, I don't want to deal with it today. I'll go by tomorrow morning or something like that. And
Yep.
you don't realize how big of a risk you have in losing that deal if they're super motivated. Because
Absolutely.
if they talk to somebody else and then calls them and heads over there that same day, it's done. And they're going to call you back and say, hey, don't bother coming by tomorrow because I've already sold it.
Yep. And it's especially important with the website leads, because you're not the only website out there, and if they've Googled and they clicked yours, they probably clicked on a couple of more. So
Right.
I try to set them as soon as possible, and I think that's why building that rapport is so huge, because if you can immediately build that rapport on the phone and build up enough trust so that they're willing to have you come take a look at it, that's been super helpful for me. Is just jumping on them as quickly as possible, and just really trying to let people know that we're not out here to steal your property out from underneath you, right? We're looking for a way to help you out of a certain situation. If you don't need that, then it's totally fine with us. We'll gladly refer you to realtors that can help you, that can help you sell it for retail if that's what you need. I've gone to several appointments and walked in and looked around and said, hey, I can make you an offer, but you don't need me, right? You need a realtor. If you sell this with a realtor, here's what you stand to make. And I can't get anywhere close to that, but and I feel that's helpful for people, because it's helpful for both of us, because then they truly understand that I'm not there to try to swindle you out of your property, right?
Right.
If you can sell this with a realtor, I want you to know that. I want you to get as much money as you can for your house. It's your house, right?
Yeah, and it's amazing how many people will take that and say, yeah, I know, but I don't want to deal with it.
Yep.
And
right. And so that's what's really huge about that too, is it absolutely, it starts to, sometimes people will kind of hold back what their motivation is, but when you put them with something like that, and and they really see that, yeah, okay, I know I can sell it for this, but here's why I don't want to deal with the realtor, right? Here's why I don't want to sell it retail. It really kind of helps you uncover what that motivation is. And if they don't have that motivation and they can sell with a realtor, maybe they just had no clue what they could sell their house for.
Yeah.
And I don't have a problem sharing those things.
So it sounds like when you go there, you make it a point to really talk with them, and it's not all about getting there, finding out what it needs and making that offer and going to the next one. It's about spending the time to understand what you're trying to help somebody through. It's like, you're not just saying that you're trying to help somebody through a problem so you can get their house. You're saying that you need to know what their problem is and see if you can actually even help.
Yeah,
if the problem is like, I don't want to, I just want to sell my house. Well, it's in perfect shape and the market's great. Hire a realtor. You're going to make more than me. You're going to tell them that because you truly just want to help them out.
Absolutely. It's a people business, man. And, I never want to lose sight of the fact that what we're doing is helping people. And I always want to keep my reputation on the positive side. I always want people to know that I'm here to help. And whether that help is me buying your house or me doing something else for you, like, that's what I want to do. There's before I'd even done a deal, off of my direct mail, I met a lady who had a house. I was walking for dollars. I was at a car show, and it was in a neighborhood with a lot of older homes, and so there's a lot of waiting around at car shows. So I just kind of took a walk down the neighborhood and talked to a guy who said he liked my car, and he asked me what I did, and so I told him, I buy houses. I'd never bought one, but that's what I wanted to do. So I told him that's what I do, and he was like, "Oh, there's a lady down the street who wants to buy a house." So I went down there and knocked on her door, and we sat on the front porch and we chit chatted, and we took a look at her house, and I ended up making her an offer that she politely declined, and but she
It doesn't look like it was so polite, but
yeah, no, she was totally.
Oh, was
polite.
it? Okay.
Totally polite. She was a sweet lady, and but through our conversation, we found out that she was sick, and there was a lawnmower repair place right behind her, who was always running lawnmowers, and the carbon monoxide from the lawnmower is tough for her to breathe. She had this immaculate lawn. Like, her front yard was beautiful. And she just said the carbon monoxide makes it too tough for her to mow. And so I went and bought her an electric lawnmower that you can plug in with a
Oh man,
cord, and
that's awesome.
I dropped it off to her the next day. And wasn't very expensive. It was just, but she needed something to take care of her lawn, which she obviously took a lot of pride in. And so did I get a deal out of that? No. But did I build rapport? Absolutely. And there's a ton of houses in the neighborhood, and who knows if she talks to one of her neighbors who ends up wants to sell, I'm fairly certain she would recommend them to me. And so
Yeah, yeah,
it's I really enjoy helping people, and I think if you keep that on the forefront of what you're doing and what you're thinking, that'll take you a lot further than just thinking through, how do I get the next deal? How do I get the next deal? The deals will come if you're taking care of people.
yeah. You're giving,
Yes.
and when you give, you receive, and that's awesome. I like that. So what have you read any good books lately? I want to know what you're reading now, since you took Rich Dad and Poor Dad and within a year
Yeah.
ended up doing this.
The last book I read that I really, really enjoyed was The Alchemist.
Yeah.
Man,
Paulo or whatever.
yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed The Alchemist. Just the whole concept of, if you're doing the things, um, doing the things along your personal path and your personal journey, that doors will open up and opportunities will come your way that you might not have imagined possible, but it will all be really good for you. And I just that whole concept and that whole story just really resonated with me. So I'd recommend everybody read that.
Cool. Anything else you want to share with the people listening?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'd just say that don't be afraid, and take action. And if you are afraid, write down your fears and read them out loud, and really try to break down what each of them are. I think a lot of the times I just find that they're not really rational fears, but when they are actual fears, and I write them down and I think through them, and I can see, yeah, that's a big fear. I shouldn't do that thing. I feel much more comfortable about it than just it being some irrational thought in my head. So write down your fears, talk through them, and then figure out a plan to work through them, right? And I think it'll be helpful. But the action, uh, do something, right? Analyze deals, or uh, figure out how much it's going to cost you to pull your marketing list, or right. All those steps were small steps. They didn't cost me anything, but they helped me get to the point that where, when I wanted to jump off the cliff, all I had to do was jump. I'd done everything. Everything else was lined up. So the little steps will lead to the big one.
Yeah, I like that a lot. You took action, but before you did, you kind of made sure that your parachute was packed, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
That's good. All right, Henry. Well, I do appreciate it. Excellent episode, and lots of great information. Um, it's really inspiring what you set out to do, committed to do, and now you're doing. And congratulations on being a soon to be first time dad.
Very much.
It is the first one, right?
Very first one.
Yeah.
Yes. Very, very first. Any moment now.
Any moment.
Uh,
You stressed out? You worried about when it's going to happen?
No, we're about as prepared as you can be. My wife is ready to not be pregnant a lot.
Mm.
So she's ready to have the baby, and as a guy who sitting there watching her, I wish I could help her. There's nothing I can do. There's no comfortable position. So yeah, we're just excited to get the baby here.
Cool. How has she been about the business? Was she like thinking it was some harebrained scheme, or?
No, not at all. She has been 100,000% super supportive from day one, and um, that has been just really the best part of all this, because I have never had to worry about her, questioning a decision to buy a house, or wondering, what are we doing,
Yeah.
purchasing all these homes. She's been by my side the whole time, just being super encouraging. And, that's super helpful, because I know if I ever, if and when I continue to make a mistake, right, she will, she understands, right, and she's there to to walk right with me and say, all right, well, let's dust ourselves off and let's keep going, right? Let's keep
Excellent.
doing this. So, that support has been huge, right? And I definitely think, from a mindset perspective, you have to have that why, right? What's your reason for doing what you're doing? And, she's a big part of mine. So
Awesome.
it's super helpful.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Henry. And if you would keep in touch, I want to hear more about your success and growth, as time goes on, and get you back on the show again too.
Absolutely. And thanks to you, I said in the email that, I just happened upon your podcast and really resonated with, your background in IT, because that's my same background. And a lot of the learning that I did when I first got started researching was from your website and from your podcast. And my website's through Lead Propeller, and it's been super helpful. I think one of the first books I read after Rich Dad Poor Dad was the Wholesaling Bible, and I think I got that recommendation from your
Oh yeah.
Ralph Van Merrill's book. So keep doing what you're doing, man. It's helping a lot of people.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right, man. Take care, and talk to you soon.
Yes, sir.